China has, of course, responded to new US tariffs with a few of its own, albeit at a smaller level at this point. Let's talk about the wider impact, though, of this for Asia with the former US Ambassador Michalak, who joins us now from Laos. Ambassador Michalak is the Senior Vice President and Regional Managing Director at the US-ASEAN Business Council there as well. Thank you for coming on the line for us. How significant are these moves? Is this the start of a sort of tit for tat, or do you think Beijing's response has actually been quite measured?
Well, I think it's a little bit too early to tell at this point, but since they've targeted about $3 billion worth of our goods, and we're targeting about $60 billion worth of theirs, I'd say that this is a beginning, saying, we're ready to go the distance if you want to do that, but we don't want to do it. And I think that certainly the American business community does not want us to do that.
The exemptions applying to the steel and aluminium measures were kind of seen by some as a negotiating lever, right, going into the next round of NAFTA negotiations. Do you see this as just a start, a sort of, a starting point for negotiations to be able to get the Chinese to come to the table?
Well, I certainly hope that that's the case. Normally, when we do a 301, or at least the experience that I've had with 301, you do at least 2 or 3 rounds of consultations with the party that you want to, whose behavior you want to change, before you go ahead and publish what we call the retaliation lists, which now USTR Lighthizer is supposed to publish it within 15 days. So if they're doing this as a negotiating tactic, they're kind of doing it backwards from the way the 301 was supposed to be used. But yeah, you can look at it as a negotiating tactic.
Ambassador, how should ASEAN view all this, and what should they do, and what's the likely impact on the region?
Well, the direct impact, particularly on the steel and aluminum tariffs, is probably not going to be all that great, since they are not a major supplier to the United States of those commodities. I think the channel that they have to look out for is what happens if $60 billion worth of tariffs goes into effect on China, and the ASEANs are caught in the supply chain. That is to say, they supply goods to China, which are then put into finished products, which are exported to the United States, and then will be subject to the higher tariff. So that could be a problem for the ASEANs. The investment part of this issue, of course, will not affect ASEAN at all, as far as I can see.
Ambassador, yes. Very briefly, many people criticized the U.S. administration under Donald Trump of abandoning its leadership or its position in this part of the world. Has this move here really perhaps been an effort to try and reestablish a role for the United States in this part of the world again after that withdrawal from TPP? Very quickly.
Right. No, I don't think so. I think that this is, quite frankly, China has been, there's been a lot of complaints about China for a long, long time. I think this may be not exactly the best way to go about addressing them, but they need to be addressed. They need to be addressed strongly. I would like to have seen consultations prior to this list being put out. But no, I don't think that this is trying to reassert leadership. I mean, I think that, leaving TPP was a mistake, but, it is what it is, and we have to deal with the realities that we have.